The world's most notorious serial killer might have remained undetected forever if he had mastered the art of using technology to cover his tracks. Imagine a scenario where a respected, well-known doctor in a small community not only befriends his victims, but also uses his professional position to meticulously plan and execute his crimes. This chilling tale revolves around Dr. Harold Shipman, a man who turned his medical practice from a place of healing into a covert operation of death. Nestled in the quiet town of Hyde, England, with a modest population of just 30,000 residents, Dr. Shipman carried out his gruesome activities for an astonishing 23 years, all while remaining under the radar of both the public and law enforcement. Despite being responsible for the deaths of over 250 individuals, suspicion never fell upon this seemingly compassionate doctor. It wasn't until he made a critical error that his dark secrets began to unravel. What drove Dr. Shipman to commit such heinous acts? How did he manage to evade detection for so long? And what was the crucial mistake that finally brought his sinister deeds to light? Welcome back to another gripping episode on True Crime Syndicate, where we delve into the most shocking crime stories from around the world. Dear viewers, Dr. Harold Shipman operated his clinic in the small, close-knit town of Hyde, located near the bustling city of Manchester, England. This town, with a population of approximately 30,000 people, was home to 3,000 of Dr. Shipman's patients, a significant number considering the town's size. His primary targets were elderly individuals, particularly those who lived alone, making their deaths appear natural and unsuspicious to outsiders. Dr. Shipman had an uncanny ability to build trust and rapport with his elderly patients. He dedicated an unusual amount of time to their care, often going above and beyond by visiting them in their homes. During these visits, he would engage in heartfelt conversations, providing a listening ear to those who felt isolated and lonely. His compassionate demeanor made his patients believe that they had found not just a doctor, but a confidant and friend. This trust ran so deep that many of his patients felt comfortable enough to hand over their house keys to him, granting him unrestricted access to their homes. This nurturing and attentive behavior elevated Dr. Shipman's reputation within the community. He became widely regarded as a doctor who genuinely cared for the elderly. Offering more than just medical treatment, he provided emotional support and companionship. However, beneath this facade of kindness lay a sinister motive. Through these intimate interactions, Dr. Shipman meticulously gathered personal information about his patients. He learned who lived alone, the extent of their wealth and property, the frequency of visits from family members, and even the whereabouts of their relatives. Once Dr. Shipman had all the information he needed and felt confident that his actions would go unnoticed, he would administer lethal doses of medication to his unsuspecting patients. Given their advanced age, the deaths of these individuals were rarely questioned, as it was easy to attribute them to natural causes. This pattern continued for years, allowing Dr. Shipman to carry out his murderous spree undetected, until a single, seemingly minor mistake set off a chain of events that would ultimately lead to his downfall. Because of this attitude of his, he had become quite famous in Hyde, because people thought that Dr. Shipman only treated old people through words. But in the midst of all this, Dr. Shipman would get all their details out in words. Who is alone at what time? Who has how much wealth and property? Who comes to the house? And where do the relatives live? When Dr. Shipman was satisfied, he would overdose the medicine on his patients and kill them. Now, because those patients were already over 80 years old, no one could even suspect their death. This went on for many years, and no one even suspected them until he himself made a mistake. Dr. Shipman started his career 70 kilometers away from Hyde, in a town called Pontefract, where he worked in a hospital. Then in 1974, he left Pontefract and went to Todmorden, where he became a general practitioner at the Abraham and Murad Medical Center. Here, during his job, he was caught prescribing a large amount of a drug called pethidine to some patients, which he had to use himself. Pethidine is actually a painkiller, but it is a very addictive medicine. Dr. Shipman was addicted to pethidine, and he would deliberately prescribe this medicine to his patients. He would give a little to them, while he himself used a large amount, while the patients did not even need this little medicine. This would make the patients feel very good after taking this medicine, when in reality they did not know that they were taking drugs. This was the reason why the Shipman's patients were attracted to him, even though they did not want to. After being caught, the hospital administration removed Dr. Shipman and the matter reached the point of his license being canceled. But Shipman gave a fine of £600 and got himself admitted to a rehabilitation center, which saved him from his license being canceled. After spending a little time in the rehab center, when everyone forgot him, he came to hide in 1977, where he became a general practitioner at the Donnybrook Medical Center. In the 1980s, he kept practicing on the position of GP, and in the meantime, he did not quit drugs, nor did he find a chance to kill old patients. But the frequency of these murders increased significantly from 1993, when he opened his own clinic in Hyde and made a good name for himself in the city. For the next few years, the matter went on like this, and no one doubted the doctor's actions. For the first time in March of 1998, Dr. Linda Reynolds, who worked in another hospital opposite the Shipman Clinic, Brooks Surgery, expressed concern about the high mortality rate among Shipman's patients. She said that Shipman, who runs only a small clinic, has lost 16 patients in the last 3 months, while during this period, Brooks Surgery, which has 3 times more patients than the Shipman Clinic, has only lost 14 patients. This doubt only increased when it was found that after the death of Dr. Shipman's 16 patients, they were not buried but burned. Let me tell you here that most Christians bury their loved ones after death. Only a few people decide to burn them. Dr. Linda expressed her suspicion in a report with the coroner of Manchester, in which it was also written with all these details that most of these 16 patients of Dr. Shipman were old women who were found dead in their homes. And it cannot be a coincidence that at the time of the death of most of these patients, Dr. Shipman was alone in their home. Dr. Linda said that most of the deaths caused by diseases in the house are on the bed, but the death of Dr. Shipman's patients was strange, sitting on a chair in well-dressed clothes. And secondly, at that time, either Dr. Shipman was at his house or he went to the same house for the first time and found the patient dead, which cannot be normal in any way. An investigation was also carried out on the basis of this report, but the police did not find any solid evidence against Dr. Shipman. And after a month, this investigation was stopped. When Dr. Harold Shipman's patients died, he himself signed the Form B. Form B is the form that the doctor who treats the patient has to sign, in which he writes the cause of the patient's death. But the problem was that Form C, which the other doctor has to sign, was also in most cases signed by Dr. Shipman's friends or those people who did not doubt him. In this way, Shipman wrote fake information in the death certificates of his patients and sent them for cremation easily, and no one had any doubt. Due to this process, many deaths remained uninvestigated, and this was the reason that Shipman was able to hide his murder easily. After the investigation was closed, Shipman put 3 more people to death, but the time to be caught was not far. Shipman's last victim was Hyde's former mayor, 81-year-old Kathleen Grundy, who died in her home on June 24, 1998. And here, too, Dr. Shipman was the last person who saw Kathleen alive for the last time. She later signed the death certificate and wrote the cause of death as old age. Kathleen's daughter, Angela Woodruff, was a lawyer herself, who doubted her mother's insistence on death when she got a will from her mother, in which she had written the name of her home to Dr. Shipman. Dr. Shipman was very close to that family, and finding a home in the will did not become the basis of doubt. In fact, Angela doubted the fact that her mother had 2 homes, whereas the will mentions only 1 home. This makes it clear that this will was written by someone who had no knowledge of another home, and that was Dr. Shipman. Angela Woodruff went to the police, who resumed the investigation. Kathleen Grundy's body was dug up and sent for autopsy. It was found that there were many traces of diamorphine in her body. When the police asked Dr. Shipman, he said that Grundy was a heroin addict, and he had written this on his computer before treating her. Dr. Shipman had recently started making entries in a computerized medical journal, but he did not know that he had entered the date of death in that entry. But the last edit date of that file is automatically saved in the computer. When the police checked the entries in that computer, they found out that Shipman had made this entry after Kathleen's death. However, this alone wasn't sufficient to bring Dr. Harold Shipman to justice. The crucial breakthrough came when investigators discovered the very typewriter he had used to forge Kathleen Grundy's will. Upon closer examination, they noticed that specific characters were missing in the document, inconsistencies that aligned perfectly with the typewriter found in Shipman's possession. This damning evidence led to his arrest on September 7, 1998, shaking the quiet town of Hyde to its core. As news of his arrest spread, families who had long harbored suspicions about the sudden and unexplained deaths of their loved ones began to step forward. Many had felt powerless to challenge the authority and reputation of Hyde's esteemed doctor, but the truth was finally unraveling. The police widened their investigation, delving into the deaths of 15 more patients under Shipman's care. Disturbingly, a clear and sinister pattern emerged. Shipman had administered fatal doses of diamorphine to his victims, personally signed their death certificates, and listed their cause of death as old age. To ensure his crimes left no trace, Shipman often recommended cremation to the families, effectively erasing any physical evidence. However, during the comprehensive Shipman inquiry, investigators meticulously re-examined every case linked to him. They scrutinized death certificates, medical records, and other documents that had passed through Shipman's hands. The inquiry extended further, involving interviews with the families of his former patients. In some cases, exhumations were carried out to conduct forensic postmortems, revealing the true cause of death. This exhaustive investigation confirmed that Shipman had murdered at least 218 patients. However, due to gaps in the evidence, the actual number of his victims is believed to be as high as 260. Shockingly, some speculate the figure could be even higher. In court, Shipman was convicted of 15 murders, ensuring he would spend the rest of his life behind bars. But in a final act of cowardice and evasion, Shipman took his own life in 2004, using a bed sheet tied to the bars of his cell. His death did not bring closure. In a chilling revelation, a fellow inmate later claimed that Shipman had confessed to killing 508 people, far more than previously confirmed. The true motive behind Shipman's monstrous actions remains a mystery to this day. Some experts speculate that he suffered from severe psychological issues, while others believe greed drove his heinous acts. Another theory points to the profound impact of his mother's death. Shipman had been very close to his mother, who succumbed to cancer after being treated with morphine to ease her pain. Some psychologists suggest that Shipman may have been recreating this traumatic experience, deriving a twisted sense of control by administering lethal doses of morphine to his unsuspecting patients. No matter the motive, the case of Dr. Harold Shipman remains one of the most horrifying examples of betrayal and abuse of trust in medical history. If you found this story shocking and eye-opening, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to True Crime Syndicate for more gripping crime stories. Hit the bell icon so you never miss an update, and let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for your continued support. We'll see you in the next chilling episode.